So if everybody could, ideally it helps the speakers if you can move back to the center sections so you're not on the two wings. If you could get situated. Hopefully you got your cars started, but you may want to turn them off. And there is a trash can in the back over here. I believe there's a trash can in the lobby. All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce very quickly. Megan Heim is our next speaker, and she is lifelong Alaskan, married, and the owner of two businesses, which I always think that's amazing because businesses are very, they take a lot out of you, but she is the owner of Infinite Options Care Coordination Service and also the Fudge Pot. And so if you could welcome her, we'd love to have her come on up and share with you. Okay? All right.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to be real honest with all of you. When I was asked to present today, I was initially super excited. And then I saw the lineup. And then I thought, okay, maybe they made a mistake. And then I talked with Pastor Derek a little bit about presenting. And it occurred to me this morning after listening to amazing presenters and really prestigious leaders in our community that I am here as a leader in training. And so what I'm going to offer you today is my story thus far. I'm going to tell you kind of, my background, and really what I've learned this far. And then I'm going to end with some stuff that has really stuck out to me and what's worked for me to get me this far. So to start, I was born here in Alaska, North Pole, and you could say I'm a lifelong Alaskan, but I'm going to admit to all of you today that after these temperatures and this being my 41st year in Alaska, I'm ready to be a snowbird. So maybe 20, 25 years, that might be my goal. So I have three siblings. I have a younger sister, an older brother, and our oldest sister, Erin, who was born with Down syndrome. And you guys are all so lucky today because she is in our audience. So that's Erin right there. So I mention her because she's kind of really the focus of what I do today. She's pretty much guided me through my life. And so I want to give you guys a history of how that went. So when my sister was born in 1974, things for individuals with disabilities were really different. My parents faced incredible, unique challenges from the moment she was born. At birth, the hospital tried to transition my sister straight into institutional care. So basically they told my parents, we think she has Down syndrome, but don't worry, we're going to take care of her for you. So my parents began their advocacy for my sister from that moment. My parents told the hospital that they could take care of her, and my dad told them, don't worry, we're just going to take her to Seattle and get her fixed. So education regarding Down syndrome and disabilities during that time was also very limited. Erin was taken to Seattle later by my parents, and she was officially diagnosed with Down syndrome. And my dad realized at that point that there is no fix. But we realized very quickly that Erin was perfect and still is perfect. She does not need to be fixed. So moving forward, my parents played many roles in advocacy for people with disabilities. They counseled other parents in our community. They meet with them, tell them what to expect and how to survive in a community that didn't have resources. We just had each other. My dad told me that the best piece of advice he's ever given was that in life, we are all dealt a hand of cards, and we just have to play that hand. So when we were very young, I can remember my dad sitting us down. You can see that my dad's a very frank person. He told us, Erin is the most important person in this family. We are all going to love her the most. And by the way, she's always going to get more than you. And that's the way it is. So that's the way we grew up. That's the way we still operate today. Erin, who will be 50 this year, she is still the most important part of our family. We still all love her the most, and yes, she still gets more than us. So growing up with Erin, it was incredibly unique. She's always kept things interesting. She has an amazing sense of humor, and if she was taught anything, it was how to be confident in her world and be able to stand up for herself. And I think that was really what my parents wanted for her. However, she did have 3 siblings and lots of cousins that had her back and were ready to protect her. So fortunately, our family made the decision very early on to include Erin in life. This meant including her in everything we did as a family. We included her in our community and our society. And I can say, looking back, this was not the case, and today it's not the case. So when I was younger, I just assumed everybody with a disability, specifically somebody with Down syndrome, was just like Erin. I assumed that every family that had a person with a disability in it lived like we did. But the harsh reality is that that was and isn't the case. I learned much later in life that individuals with disabilities, they come in all shapes and sizes, just like the rest of us. They're complex human beings, just like the rest of us, but they face different hardships. So, and families that had individuals with disabilities face oftentimes strained marital relationships, they have financial pressures, sibling adjustments, and decreased parent efficiencies. So if a child needs additional attention in some of these families, marital and sibling relationships can really experience strain and stress. My parents had several businesses growing up. I was fortunate to be able to learn from them, and I was exposed to running a business at a very early age. I learned business operations and had opportunities to work in many jobs within the businesses, and this gave me a very good base for the future in the business world. After graduating high school, I attended college and I worked lots of different jobs. And I did graduate from UAF with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a minor in sociology. And to be honest, I really didn't know what I was going to do with that. But in 2009, it was kind of a fluke. I was hired at Fairbanks Resource Agency. It was my first job in the disability field. And I can tell you that my time working at FRA was invaluable. I had several positions, and while I was there, I got to learn the ins and outs of the Medicaid waiver, and the Social Security systems. I know that sounds weird, but this might sound weird, but those systems were fascinating to me, and they still are. I absolutely love them. So, and when I grew up, we didn't have support services for Erin. So it was just an eye-opener to see that this was even an option for people with disabilities. While I was at FRA, one of the positions I had was I was the residential director for about 2 years. I oversaw a program with over 100 employees. I can tell you that when I was hired for the position, I really thought I knew what I was doing. I can say now that I was not qualified for that position, and I was a little over my head. So I can reflect now and say that. While I was at FRA, I did have lots of successes in this role, but I did fail. And I can tell you that in life, I know with myself that I've learned much more from my failures than my successes, and I always keep that in the back of my mind. Also, while working at FRA, I worked as a care coordinator and eventually a care coordination manager. And I can honestly say that care coordination has been the best job I've ever had. And I know what all of you are thinking, what the heck is care coordination? Because even my dad says, Meg, I don't even know what you do. So I'm going to give you a really, the Alaska Care Coordination Services definition, and I'll kind of explain it a little easier. So basically in the state, we assist individuals to gain access to waiver and other state plan services. This includes medical, social, educational, and other services with funding sources other than Medicaid. So essentially, we try and really seek out those community resources for people. For recipients, care coordinators manage the process of planning for services, developing a plan of care, ongoing monitoring of services, and renewing the plan of care annually. So the populations we assist are individuals that experience intellectual and developmental disabilities, children and adults with complex medical conditions, and seniors with Alzheimer's and dementia. We help them foster the greatest amount of independence in their lives. We help them to remain in the most appropriate environments in their home and also in our community. We help them build and strengthen family and community supports. We treat recipients with dignity and respect in the provision of the services. We secure for recipients appropriate, comprehensive, and coordinated services that will promote rehabilitation and maintenance of current abilities, to serve as a link to increase access to community-based services, and to improve the availability and quality of services. So in a nutshell, we help people. So people do come to us, oftentimes struggling and in crisis situations. Our services can assist families and individuals in some relief in these tough circumstances, and I can honestly say that every day I get to help someone. In this role, I've learned to be empathetic. So care coordinators have to be neutral parties, and we have to use our knowledge of community resources and use our local, state, and federal service systems to hopefully help provide some relief and support to people. And this is the reason why I love what I do. So back in 2015, there were some regulation changes, and care coordinators at that time were forced out of providing agencies. So care coordinators could no longer work within agencies like FRA. So I made a huge decision, and I opened my own agency in October of 2015. So Infinite Options was born. Our mission is to ensure that individuals have access to our community, they have equal rights, inclusion in our society, and the freedom to choose. Today, I'm happy to say that we currently serve individuals statewide. I think we have almost 250 individuals that we serve. There's 5 care coordinators working here working for the agency, including myself. We have 4 working here in our Fairbanks office, and I have 1 lady working for me in Valdez. We also have 6 individuals that experience intellectual and developmental disabilities that work at Infinite Options doing janitorial and shredding tasks. So I just want to say that my team of care coordinators have been and are absolutely amazing. They genuinely believe in our mission, and I believe that if your team must believe in your company's mission to make anything work. I'm going to point out one of my care coordinators. She was supposed to be here today, and I'm pretty sure she's the reason that I'm presenting today. So, so Patty Davis, she started with Infinite Options in January of 2016. And I'm going to say that she took a lot of risk joining my agency. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so she had faith in me, and I truly thank her for trusting me. And I will just say that to say that Patty is an awesome care coordinator is an understatement. She's compassionate, she's smart, and she's probably one of the most organized people I've ever met in my life. So she's definitely an asset to our team, and I'm so thankful to have her. So my mission in life is to ensure that everyone has equal opportunities, but more specifically, access to equal employment. So Alaska is an employment-first state. Now, this means we probably should be in the lead when it comes to hiring people with disabilities, you'd think. Sadly, we're not in the lead, far from it, and we're actually trending down. And right now, as employers, managers, supervisors, we all know finding anyone to work is very challenging. So I think this is the perfect time that we can focus on hiring people with disabilities. So individuals with disabilities, they're some of the best employees. I mean, just flat out, best employees. In my experience, individuals who experience a disability, they work hard, they have better attitudes, and they can really make the work environment more positive. So in 2018, this is pre-pandemic, A study from Accenture identified several companies as disability inclusion champions. So on average, these companies had 72% more productivity, 30% higher profit margins, and 200% higher net income. So, doing some research and also being a witness to this, I just want to identify 5 qualities that really the individuals with disabilities tend to bring to the workplace. The first is reliability. They typically they value their jobs and their employer. They show up on time and work hard. They have positive attitudes. So an individual with a disability tends to have a more cheerful outlook at work, and they recognize that having positive attitudes while working is important. They have determination. They tend to be determined and not give up. As they experience some kind of difficulty in their lives, they work hard to overcome those difficulties. Resilience. Individuals with disabilities tend to cope with challenges and adapt to them. And creativity. Often living with a disability means trying to create new ways of doing things, finding solutions to problems, and then taking on new perspectives. So very early on in my professional career, it was always my goal to have a place where I can employ people with disabilities. While I was able to fulfill this mission on a very small scale with infinite options, I can only have my office so clean, and by the way, moving away from a paper world, it's really hard to find paper to shred. And I blame Shredway. No. So it wasn't until years later that this dream came true. So I was planning to start a business. I was going to start it from the ground up. It was going to be a coffee shop, kind of had a business plan. But I came across an ad where the Fudge Pot downtown was for sale. And to be honest, I'd probably only been in the Fudge Pot twice in my life. Don't really remember it. I know it's a cute little shop on First. So I immediately moved forward with scheduling a meeting with the owner. At the time, it was Nixie Doan. And I can honestly say she's probably the nicest person I've ever met. And I absolutely loved her store. So I thought it would be perfect to be able to continue her legacy of selling our community amazing food, fudge, and gifts, and be able to incorporate my mission of hiring people with disabilities. So I purchased the Fudge Pot in August of 2022. So I live in North Pole with my husband and partner of 21 and a half years, Mike, he's here today, and our dog Hobbit. My husband has a tile and stone company, Exquisite Tile and Stone, and I have my 2 businesses, and we have several rental properties that we own and manage. Now, I'm including this information in my presentation because I can honestly say I would not be able to do any of this on my own. He supports me in every decision I make, and I know for sure that when I came home and told him, oh, hey, I want to buy the Fudge Pot, he thought, oh no, what's she up to now? So I did purchase the Fudge Pot, and after I did, Mike spent countless hours remodeling it, giving it a fresh look. If you guys have been in there, it looks amazing. And I don't think I could have been successful without his support. So after the remodel and learning how to run a business like the Fudge Pot, because honestly, I had no idea what it was like to run a cafe or restaurant, and Mike and I spent hours and hours and hours perfecting the fudge, so that was always fun. I'm lucky today to say that I've hired a team that also believes in my mission, and it was actually wasn't very hard to find those people, which was awesome. Today we have 12 individuals with disabilities that are employed and eight people that are typical workers. And I've been able to create a work environment that creates natural supports for people who experience disabilities. So, and of course we still have our delicious fudge. So that's where I'm at right now. Moving forward, I do have very specific goals for my care coordination agency and the Fudge Pot. So my hope for Infinite Options is to continue to grow and, of course, hire more care coordinators. When I started in 2015, the state of Alaska had over 350 care coordinators. Today, we have under 200. So I don't want to say we're dying, but we really do need to get people back into our world. It's a difficult field to enter because you really need to have clients to make any money. So I joined the Alaska Association on the Developmental Disabilities Board in 2021. And we've been working closely with the state of Alaska Senior and Disability Services on trying to find better ways to recruit care coordinators in our state. In addition, individuals in rural areas have difficulty finding care coordinators, and so my hope is to be able to increase our capacity to be able to serve more of those areas. The fudge pot, on the other hand, is I think it's the beginning of a much larger goal for me. When I started this, it was kind of a side project, kind of just to fulfill my own personal mission, but it's become much more than that. So the first part is I recently joined the board on the Downtown Association, and really I just did that because I love downtown Fairbanks. I really want to continue to be invested on ensuring that it continues to thrive. So I'm really excited to start that venture this year with them. And I am pleased that the model I've created to include individuals with disabilities in the place of employment is working at this level. However, my larger goal is to create a model where all employers can use and then I can provide training and/or guidance so all employers can hire people with disabilities and then successfully create inclusive work settings. I think by making this process possible and feasible, it might encourage and incentivize employers to hire people of all abilities to work. On a larger scale, individuals who experience disabilities usually have some type of assistance, whether it be Medicaid, Medicaid waiver services, and/or Social Security income. By hiring people with disabilities, we can move towards not having to rely so much on these systems. For example, individuals who receive Medicaid could potentially work full-time, and they could pay a Medicaid premium through the Medicaid Working Disabled program. Individuals who receive Social Security income could continue to be eligible for Social Security, but could work full-time and their income be supplemented by work wages instead of drawing from Social Security. And lastly, an individual who receives Medicaid waiver services, which would provide job supports while working, this service could have additional focuses, including training coworkers to support individuals naturally within the workplace. So this means that job supports would eventually fade out, and then Medicaid waiver services wouldn't have to pay for that service. So I'm here before you, and I'm telling you that I've got a lot of work cut out for me. So this is my story. Thinking about leadership, I just want to say that the next part of my presentation is really what's worked for me thus far. And you are going to see some themes. The presenters today have all mentioned most of these, but truly these next items are what worked for me. So the first, and I mentioned earlier in my presentation, having empathy. So I think being an empathetic person is critical in work, especially in my work, but I think in life. I think meeting people where they are is essential. Being authentic. So Erin is my true example for that. I look to her. I will continue to be who I am, continue to think creatively, and continue to show up as my true self. Self-awareness. This has been a tricky one for me. At times, and I think when I was younger, wore my heart on my sleeve a little bit, especially when I was mad. So I continue to work really hard to be fully present in the moment to whatever is going on inside and outside of myself, and really be aware of how it affects those around me. Courage. So being a business owner causes me to make tough decisions that might leave me vulnerable. I'm still learning to have courage and to make decisions, to take calculated risks, and accept responsibility for those outcomes. Again, recognizing that at the end of the day, I am responsible for the successes and failures of my businesses. Integrity. I do believe in doing the right thing, and even if it's tough sometimes. This is where it's extremely important for me to be transparent in my decision making. Flexible. So being able to adapt to changes is probably what I'm best at. So being a care coordinator, you have to be really good at this, but also running two businesses, it can be all about plans changing, schedules changing, and I've really learned to be flexible and adaptable. Lifelong learner, which we've heard earlier today. I am definitely not done learning. After listening to earlier presenters, I've got a lot to learn. I hope maybe in 25 years, I can be back up here and tell you guys how it went. So I'm never going to be one to say I know it all, and I think that we can learn from each other. So again, never stop learning. Delegation. This one's been tough for me. Previously, I thought it was just easier to do things on my own. Owning my own business puts all the responsibility on me, and so delegating is risky. But I have gotten better at that, and I'm working on that, and I'm realizing that it does free up more of my time if I can delegate a little. Commitment. So I believe in a strong work ethic. I work hard, and I put extra time and effort whenever necessary. I also hold extremely ambitious standards for myself. That can be good and bad. And vision. So I guess this is just always about thinking ahead. I'm constantly thinking about my businesses and where they're heading. The trick, I think, is to get others on board with my vision. Also, as I've mentioned, family is extremely important to me. They provided me with a solid foundation and supported me through all of my endeavors so far, and I'm truly thankful to have them. My sister, Erin, who really, truly is the reason why I do what I do and why I'm here today. Having a team that believes in what you believe in, I think, is critical. This is why having a mission you believe in is so important. And keeping your team happy. I think that really supporting your team and ensuring they feel confident in their roles is the key to success. So, this is the end of my presentation, but I did want to leave you with a quote. I really like this quote. It's by John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So, thank you.
Is there a question? Anyone? Okay, got one in the back.
Disabled people at the Fudge Pot, how do they relate to the customers that they've never met?
Let me repeat it for the live feed. So the disabled employees at the Fudge Pot, how do they relate to the customers? How does that go?
We have a broad spectrum. So we have some that love it, love customers, want to be right there and converse with them for long periods of time. And then we have also those that we know are not very good with people. And so we have other positions for them. So it's really been great. We've been able to create tasks within the Fudge Pot for all different types of people. So we have people doing, those cleaning, kind of behind the scenes things, all the way up to running the cash register, greeting customers. We have one individual, which if you follow our Facebook, he pretty much runs it, and that takes very much pride in taking pictures and posting it. So we have all spectrums of tasks for people depending on what they can do.
Is there one more question? Yes. Carol.
We do. Yep.
Why don't you say?
I was just curious to know if your organization worked with the state's rehabilitation and vocational program that they have. They offer what they call Job X, and it's an opportunity for those with disabilities to maybe, and their employers to look to see what's available, and then they work with them. And I didn't know if your organization did something along those lines or if you've worked with them before.
Yep, so the Division of Voc Rehab is an organization that we work very closely with. In fact, right now in the state of Alaska, we are mandated to direct our individuals to them first. So we have several that have gone successfully through their program and ended up at the Fudge Pot. They provide hours where they provide their own job coaches, and again, once those job coaches come in, they fade out. So we work really closely with DVR to make jobs possible for people. Yeah.
All right, let's say thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Frank Ostanek. Oh, yes, the all-important clock, so we know what's going on. And he is the director of Catholic Schools of Fairbanks. He's been 31 years as a teacher, coach, married for 29 years, one son, local graduate, both Eielson High School and UAF the college. So let's welcome Frank. Come on up.
I'm incredibly flattered to have the opportunity to be here with you today. I look out and there's so many amazing human beings here present, not just as presenters, but here willing to learn and be a part of something this special. So I applaud all of you for braving the cold and being willing to show up today and learn something possibly new that would help you on your journey to becoming the best version of yourself. And so I think when it comes to stuff like this personally, I always tell players when they come to clinics that I do, when I show up at stuff like this, I always think, man, if you can just get one thing, one thing, whether there's one thing from each speaker or one thing this morning or one thing this afternoon, if you could just walk away with one thing, I think it's incredibly worthwhile. And I know when I was asked to be here, I was, obviously, like I said, flattered and looking out at how many wonderful people we have, humbled to be here. At the same time, I thought I'm going to get an opportunity to learn myself. And so a little background on me personally. Moved to Alaska when I was 7. My dad was in the Air Force. And I graduated from Ben Eielson High School, moved on and graduated from the University of Alaska, where I played for the men's basketball program there. I got my degree, and I began my teaching and coaching career, coaching and teaching in the small village of Caltag on the Yukon River. I went on to, I got married that summer to an incredibly wonderful human being, my wife, Tony. I went on to coach and teach in the village of Northway after that for 2 years. And by sheer luck and happenstance, boy, I was really blessed. I got hired at the University of Alaska and spent 8 years as assistant basketball coach there for the men, and went on to be the head coach there for 3 years. We won more games in those 3 years than at any point in the history of that, or a 3-year stretch. I was the coach of the year in that 3rd year, and I lost my job. And I went on to Ben Eielson, where I was the JV coach and a teacher. I was the GNAC Coach of the Year, and the next year I'm coaching JV at Eielson. And, I looked at that and I said, you know what, I got to do what I ask my players to do all the time, and that is to just, put one foot in front of the other, trust God, and do the best that I can every day. And in that spring, I got a phone call from Monroe Catholic asking if I'd be interested in the athletics director job, a teaching job, and the boys basketball job. And I got that job, and I did that job for 15 years. And this past summer, I was fortunate enough to be asked to apply and be accepted as the new director of the school and the president of the Monroe Foundation. About 9 years ago, maybe, my wife was on me to get my master's, and I didn't want to get my master's. It sounded like a lot of work, sounded like a lot of money, all right? And at the job that I had, it wasn't going to give me a raise. So I saw no redeeming qualities really in doing it. And of course I did it because I've been married 29 years. That's because I've learned to do what my wife tells me to do. And so I got my master's, and it was amazing. I got my master's in athletic director coaching leadership. And I fell in love with this concept of leadership. And I found out there's a lot of things I got to do better, and there's a lot of things I was doing well. And I would invariably, like I said, I fell in love with the concept, and I would invariably be around friends of mine who are coaches. A lot of my friends are coaches. And we're always complaining that we don't have enough leaders. There's not enough leaders. We don't have enough leadership on our team. And I decided I needed to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And so at Monroe Catholic, I started a leadership class. And I taught that for 2 or 3 years, and then for whatever reason, I wasn't able to teach it for a while. And then last year, I had the blessing of being able to get back into the classroom at the high school level, and I had 15 kids, and I just man, I love talking about leadership. I love working with young kids and trying to help them ultimately, move on to be, leaders in our society today. And through that experience this past year, I would have the kids take out a notebook, and or at least have a notebook with them. And every now and then, I would say something that I thought was poignant. And I would say, get out your notebooks and write this down. And I named these things Mr. O's truisms on leadership. And at the end of the semester, they would have to memorize those truisms, and that was their final. And we would, they'd maybe elaborate on them. And so I thought today what I would do is share with you some of these truisms that I, over 31 years of coaching and teaching and being in some level of leadership, I've really come to believe. And so I'm going to start with number one. The individuals that you lead will achieve to the standards and the expectations that you set. If you set low standards and expectations, that's what you're going to get. If you set really high standards and really high expectations, that's what you're going to get. All right, so I always, I use the eligibility and grades as an example. If at Monroe Catholic we say you can have an F and still play sports, we're going to have way more kids who have an F. All right, but if we say, look, you can have 1D and no Fs if you want to play sports, I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of those people who had an F will no longer have Fs. They will have 1D, and they will be eligible to play. My belief is you need to set incredibly high standards and high expectations for your organization, your business, your team. Okay? I think the first thing you need to do in this process is to determine what are your non-negotiables. What is it that you are unwilling to compromise on as a leader? All right, if you talk to any of my basketball players, whether it was 14 years ago, 7 years ago, or today, I think there'll be a very consistent message in what my non-negotiables are. You're going to hear, you better be on time. You're going to hear, you better play hard. You're going to hear, you better play unselfishly. If you don't do those things, you will not play. Right? Those are just some of my non-negotiables. You might hear some other things, but I think you're going to hear those three. You need to determine for yourself, we're all different, right? There's all different styles of leadership. We're all different human beings. We're all great in our own way and very, very flawed in our own way, right? You need to figure out what are your personal non-negotiables. And you need to be unyielding, all right, in the enforcement of those. Now, Marilyn talked about grace, and I am a big believer in grace. Be willing to extend grace to those who maybe on occasion don't meet your standards. Or break a non-negotiable. But understand that there must be integrity. There must be a level of integrity in your non-negotiables, all right? So don't let grace impact the integrity of your non-negotiables, okay? So number two, regarding discipline, standards, and expectations, you can always loosen as you go, but you cannot tighten, okay? So I like to use, either basketball or the classroom as an example. If I teach my leadership class for 7 weeks and the kids are disrespectful, they're talking when I'm talking, they're on their phones, when I turn around, they're throwing spitballs at me. And I walk in on Monday of week 8 and I say, that's it. No more phones, no more talking when I'm talking, all right? Those kids aren't going to listen. They're not going to adhere to this new standard or expectation. I have lost their respect. I think when you are a leader in any new position, there's no more important day than your first day. There's no more important week than your first week, and there's no more important year than your first year. I think that is critical. All right? You set the standards, you set the expectations, you let them know what your non-negotiables are. All right? And you can loosen as you go. All right. I think it's crazy. Like I said, I got back in the classroom last year, and in my experience, I'm walking around the school, and kids are always going to the bathroom. Always. I don't remember, but maybe a handful of times in high school where I would say, hey, can I go to the bathroom? Right? Like I could manage my life. Right? And so I would tell my students, listen, the very first day, you got a syllabus, it's right there. You get to use the bathroom once this quarter, all right? I better not see a phone also. But if you need to use the bathroom more than once, you can, but you will spend lunch with me. We had, I think, 3 kids asked to use the bathroom the entire semester. High standards, high expectations. Those that you lead will achieve to those standards and expectations. Number 3, a player-led team is far better than a coach-led team. I think it's our responsibility as leaders to create a culture in which the people we lead buy into what we're teaching and they hold each other accountable. At the point that we get that, we can do amazing things. We can really thrive as an organization. That's not, look, I'm not saying that's easy. I think that's challenging to do. But we want an organization that is, yeah, I may be the leader, you may be the leader, but the people we lead hold each other accountable. So when I was an assistant coach at the university, I remember like in year 2 or 3, we had a standard and an expectation that if you go to a luncheon or you go to a banquet, you wear a dress shirt, dress slacks, dress shoes, and a belt. Like that was the standard and the expectation. And I remember we went to a luncheon, and it wasn't in our first year, it was year 2 or 3. And I could hear at the luncheon the kids on one of the freshmen. They were on him because he didn't have a belt. They're like, where's your belt? What are you doing? We wear belts. And I knew right away, we're moving in a very good direction. Our culture is strong, right? Our players are holding one another accountable. And I thought, this is what, we're trying to do here. And I felt really good, as I said, about the direction we were heading. So your ability to create that within your group, your organization, your team, I think is really important. So number 4, and this is an incredibly tough one for me personally, right? More than ever as a leader, it's really important to explain the why. It's really important to explain the why to those that you lead, okay? Now look, I'm 53 years old, all right? I grew up in a time where I didn't get to ask why, all right? I don't know about all of you, but if my dad told me to clean my room and I said why, that didn't end well for me personally, all right? And so, again, I think it's really important. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a change over time, but it's not a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. I tell my players, look, this is hard for me. I may not always do it. I will endeavor to do it. And if I don't do it, raise your hand and say, why are we doing this? And I will stop what I'm doing and I will absolutely explain the why, because I think that's critical. I think it's really important. Going back to the standard and expectation of dressing up for a luncheon and a banquet. If we just tell the kids, hey, when we go to luncheons and banquets, you better get dressed up. Dress shirt, dress pants, dress shoes, belt. See you tomorrow. Well, there's going to be young people who question, why are we doing this? This is dumb. That's going to be something that is said by somebody in that group. But if we say, listen, when we go to luncheons and banquets, all right, you're going to get dressed up and meet this standard and meet this expectation, because there are going to be really, really, really successful and influential people at these things, all right? And we want them to know that we're a highly successful organization. We want them. These might be individuals that might donate money to our program. These are individuals that may hire you someday. All right? So making that first impression with them is critical. They may come to our games, and even better, they may bring people to our games. It's a victory for all of us. Now, those individuals, all right, I get it. Dress shirt, dress pants, dress shoes, belt. All we did was explain the why, all right? And so I think that's a good example of how that can really work for you. Number 5, if all you ever do is your job, be prepared to be incredibly average at what you do, okay? I remember being on a fishing trip. I was with my uncle, and my uncle had flown up from Florida. My son was with me. We're on the Kenai Peninsula, and my best friend's a guide there. And I don't get a lot of time to myself. I don't get a lot of time to do these things. And we're driving around the peninsula, and I don't remember what we were doing, but we're driving around, and I'm on the phone with a coach back here in Fairbanks. And I'm trying to get him, he's got a comp basketball team, and I'm trying to get him in our gym. He needs to use our gym. And I got to call somebody else to come open the gym. And then I got to call somebody else, to see if we can get the gym closed, because that guy can't, that's opening it, can't close it. And, I'm driving around, and we park, and I get off the phone, and I look at my uncle, and I'm like, Uncle Frank, if all I ever had to do was just my job, my life would be so much easier. And I remember he looked at me and he said, yeah, but what would that be? You wouldn't be very successful. And I thought, oh, man. I had always done I thought more. Like I was doing more in that moment, but I was being a baby. Like I was being a baby in that moment, but I had always done more, but I never connected the fact that my willingness to do more might have something to do with some measure of success. And I know at Monroe Catholic, where I work, there's a Jesuit word it's on my wall in my office. It's called magis. Magis, loosely interpreted, means more, but the correct interpretation is not more. It's more better. I would ask all of you to consider, the concept of magis. We're going to all have to do more better, right? If all you do is just simply, we've all known that person, right? Hey, can you come in a little early tomorrow? Can you stay late? Hey, we need your help this weekend. That's not my job. Like, I don't work well with those people. And I can tell you, I got 65 people that work for me at Monroe Catholic, and all of them believe in magis. They're all doing more, and they're doing it better. All right, and I think that's why we function at the level that we do as an organization. So the idea of just doing more better, I think, is something that I would encourage all of you to consider. So number 6. I skipped one. Most people are very good at what they like to do. Unfortunately, in life, more often than not, the reality is you are going to be evaluated on how good you are at what you don't like to do. I have worked for, this is my 31st year working, coaching, teaching. I've been at 5 different institutions in all different capacities. And I'm going to tell you, I have been incredibly blessed. Every job I've had, I have loved. I've loved going to work every day. And I can tell you, with every one of those jobs, there were things I absolutely hated to do, right? That were not fun, okay? As an athletics director, for 15 years, I had to make programs for football games, volleyball games, basketball games. I had to make them, I had to fold them, I had to get them ready on time, and I did not like it. But our programs were better than anybody else's in town. And I don't say that in arrogance, I deplore arrogance. But I'm just telling you, you would not know that I did not like doing it. I did not enjoy, in fact, I disliked with great vengeance, being an announcer at a volleyball game. All right? I did not look forward to that. I got to lead the pledge. I got to talk about the game. I got to get the names right for every one of the starters. I got to announce the starters. I got to do it with great energy and joy. And I did it in a manner that you would not know that I dislike this job, or I dislike this aspect of the job. Okay? So what I would recommend to you, and all of these I believe in. I think this is a big deal. Okay? I would ask you, think about what your job is and write down the things that you do not like to do. Look at them and do them great. Do them with great joy. Do them great. If you can do those things at an extraordinary level, you will separate yourself from everybody else that is in the career that you're in. All right? You will separate yourself from others. Be great at the things you don't like to do. Number 7, don't worry about criticism from people you wouldn't ask advice from. So, I think I would suspect it's really, really difficult to find anybody who's in a I'd be interested in, Mr. Burns' thoughts on this. I think it'd be really hard to find someone that's in a high level of leadership that is universally beloved, right? You're going to have to make really tough decisions. And when you make really tough decisions, you're not going to please everybody. Right? All you can do is educate yourself, talk to people that you trust, people who care about you, smart people. Make the best decision you can and look forward, not backwards. Believe in the decision you've made. If you believe in the decision you've made, look forward, not backwards. There's a reason, right? In all of our cars and trucks, the rear view mirror is this big, right? And the windshield is this big, right? Look forward, not back, Okay, I'm coaching a game, and there's 3 minutes left, and we're up 30, which doesn't happen a whole lot anymore, but we're up 30, all right? And one of my players doesn't do something right. My voice is raised. I am on that player, right? And I am well aware that there's somebody in the stands that is actively telling somebody or certainly saying to themselves, that guy's a jerk. Okay? I don't care about that person. I care about that kid. I certainly care about that kid's parents, and I care about my program. And I have this conversation with my players all the time. My standards and expectations do not change whether we are up 30 or down 30. These are the standards and expectations. This is what we live by. All right? We're not always going to be up 30. We have to do these things right. All right? And if I let it go, right, in that moment, what confidence do I have that you're going to do it right when it matters? All right? So, it's tough. If you're worried about being popular, this is the wrong avenue. Right? Leadership is not about popularity necessarily. It's about doing what's right. Okay? Anyways, number 8, never forget, fun should be part of the equation. Right? I like to tell stories. Okay? My first year at the university, I took over a program that had just gone to the NCAA Sweet 16. All right? 270 NCAA Division II schools. We finished 16th, or in the top 16. That's an incredible accomplishment. Anywhere in Fairbanks, Alaska, this is a tough place to recruit. This is a tough place to win. Okay? We had just finished in the top 16. I take over. We have the best player in school history then or now, ever, on our team. He's a senior. We have other good players returning. We got a couple good freshmen. The expectations are very high. All right? And we lose. We used to have this big Division I basketball tournament, some of you may remember, called the Top of the World Classic. We lost all 3 games. We had won that tournament 2 years prior to that. So the expectations were high. We lost all 3 games. I remember sitting in my chair at home, and my wife is on the couch, and I look over at one point after that tournament, and she's crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, aren't you worried you're going to get fired? I'm like, good Lord, I've coached 5 games. Well, let's relax for a minute. We went on and won like 12 or 13 in a row, but then we hit a tough patch. Our best player, we went on the road, played at 2 really tough places, lost both games. Our best player had sprained his ankle on that trip. We came back home. We won a big game against UAA, but played poorly. And then we split. So we're 2-3 in our last 5 games. The expectation is that we get to the NCAA tournament, that we do well in the tournament. And now just getting to the tournament is in doubt. And so it's a struggle right then. And we're going back out on the road, and we got to go play at Central Washington and St. Martin's. In Central Washington, we haven't won in 30 years. And we're leaving on a Wednesday, and I have the kids come in the gym at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And I went through about 30 minutes worth of stuff with them that I wanted to cover. And at the end of that 30 minutes, I put a group over here and a group at this hoop, and I said, I want you to go play this free throw game. We called it progression. And I went and climbed up into the old bleachers there in the Patty Center, and I watched. And they started to play this free throw game. And with every minute that went by, and they probably played for a good 20, 25 minutes, they started laughing. They started having fun, carrying on. They were having a ball. 18 to 23-year-old men acting like 8 to 10-year-old boys. And it hit me in that moment. This is what's been missing. This is it. And I found great joy in watching them. And I called them in, and I sat them down, and I said, this is it. This is what we're missing. I don't think we've been having fun for the last 3 weeks. We need to get on that plane tomorrow. We're going to go have fun. We get to play a game we love. And yeah, becoming great at anything as an individual or a team is hard. But there's got to be some joy in it. It's got to be fun. And we talked about that. And we went on the road, and we beat Central for the first time in 30 years. And we won the next game, and we won the next game, and we lost one more time until we got to the Sweet 16, and we lost again. And to this day, I am well aware, or it's my belief anyways, that I don't think we would have got where we went that year had it not been for that moment when I realized, man, we got to have some fun. Figure out in your organization, your team, how you can build some fun into what you do. To this day, my kids will come in, they don't know when, for a basketball practice, and we'll play dodgeball. They're not expecting it. Or we'll go bowling. We'll work in, over the course of the season, some fun. So you got to figure that out for your own group, but I think fun needs to be part of the equation. Okay. Final one. I know Pastor Derek's probably looking at me. We're going to get going here. Final one. In the end, the people that you lead simply want to know that they are valued, that you care about them, that they are appreciated. They simply want to know that they matter. It is your responsibility as the leader to make sure that that is conveyed to the people you lead. And that can be different for every organization. And the how of that can be different for every one of you. But the result has got to be the same. The people you lead must know that you care about them. They have to know that you are in their corner. If they do, they will do anything for you. They will run through a wall. They will work harder. They'll hold each other accountable. They'll do the things that are necessary for us to succeed at the level that we have to succeed. Right? I've seen leaders who are great at this, and I've seen those who struggle. And invariably, the ones who struggle tend to have the organizations or the division in this organization that struggles. Right? So, I think I had someone not long ago who said something to the effect of, when I talk to your players, one of the things that they say is that they wanted to do well for you. They wanted some level of approval. They wanted you to say they had done well. Why do you feel that they feel that way? And the only thing I can come back to is that I love them. And that I'm going to do everything I can for them. And that somehow, somewhere along the way, I've conveyed to them that they matter and that they are important. And that's a struggle I have as a coach. I'm not the easiest guy to play for, okay? But I feel like I have good relationships with my kids. I feel like, in general, they know I can coach them hard because they know I love them. And I think you, as a leader, can lead any way you need to lead if the people that you're leading know that you care about them. They know they matter. So look, I could talk about this stuff all day, all right? I know that's been said by others. I love this, okay? I didn't talk about culture at a high level. I didn't talk about process. I'm a process guy. I'm a culture guy. All of these things, all right, are necessary in my mind to create an extraordinary culture, all right? A culture that's going to lead to some level of success, okay? I think if I walk into your business and ask somebody or your team or organization, what's the culture of this place? And they don't know, that's going to be a problem, okay? I don't know the culture or what Ann would tell you the culture is of the food bank. But I know that it is my belief when I walk in there that the culture is love. That some aspect of that culture is compassion. Because when I walk in, I feel it. That's how I feel when I walk in. And that's how I feel when I walk out. And if you walk into Monroe, it is my expectation that faith at Monroe Catholic better be a huge aspect of our culture. Community, family, better be at the forefront of who we are. If you ask one of our staff, I would hope that they say Magis, the understanding of doing more and doing it better. If anybody, I love talking about this stuff, I'm passionate about it. If anybody ever wants to have coffee or breakfast or lunch or whatever, I don't have a schedule where I could just always do those things, but I will make time over the course of a period of time. You can always contact me. The easiest way is, the best email is coachostanek@hotmail.com. I'd always be willing to talk with you further. If you want to, any of this stuff, email me, I'll send it to you. My phone number is 907-322-9043. Reach out. I'd love to discuss any of this stuff with you. 3 books I recommend. John Gordon, You Win in the Locker Room First. James Kerr, Legacy. And Jay Billis, Toughness. I recommend those 3. There's all kinds, though. As someone said earlier, there's 57,000 different, things you can resource, but I like these 3. So, Pastor Derek, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
All right, let's thank him. And not every idea you hear transfers. My secretary did not like dodgeball day. It just wasn't the same. But anyway, do you have any questions for Frank? You have? Oh, in the back. Here, let me run.
Can you speak a little bit more about the concept of MOGIS in contrast to the idea of the Pareto principle and effective leaders saying no just to most things so they can really concentrate?
That's tremendous. That's a very, very great, point. You always run the risk, right, of doing a bunch of things average instead of a few things great. Okay? I think we all have to have some level of discernment, okay, as to what more better means for you. All right? I want to do more and I want to do it better. For me, that means greeting kids at the door when they come in. I'm going to have to mop a gym floor or clean a bathroom. I'm going to do those things. But yes, there is a point where you may have to say no. I don't like to say no to people, but I worked for a guy that really got himself in trouble a lot because he always said yes and then he couldn't deliver, right? And so never put yourself in a position where you cannot, when you say yes to something, that you cannot deliver. I would say that is first and foremost, right? I may believe in MOGIS, but I'm not going to say yes to something that I cannot do and do well. And so be very discerning in what you say yes to, I guess. All right? But endeavor to say yes.
All right, say thank you again. All right, we are down to our last 2. And so the next one is Jomo Stewart. He's the president of the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation. Graduated the University of Alaska, like a lot of our other speakers. He was twice chief of staff with representatives in the Alaska State Legislature. And recently he was the general manager of the Interior Gas Utility, where he negotiated a $350 million deal to finance the Interior Energy Project, uniting Fairbanks Natural Gas and the Interior Gas Utility under community control. So if you would welcome Jomo Stewart, come on up.
Well, hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. All right, so I was going to go ahead and give you guys a choice. Coming so late in the game, and particularly following the speakers that you all have had, I do still have platitudes. So if you guys would like platitudes, I have some. But otherwise, I was going to give you guys some really just practical information, stuff that you can use as leaders, but really just as citizens. Is that fair enough? You guys okay if we go that route? Okay. All right. Can we cue us up? I will give you one bit of managerial advice, though, I was given by one of my directors when I first was coming in the door at IGU, because he had been the former president over at GVEA. And he said, every day someone is going to want to walk into your office with a wild monkey on a leash. And part of your job as a manager is to make sure they walk out of the office with that monkey still on that leash, because they're going to want to just let it run wild in your office, which is to say they're going to bring you problems, and they're going to try to make them your problems. And part of being a good manager is finding ways to have them help you find the solutions. So that was a really good lesson, and I tried to put that in practice. But what I want to do instead, actually, is talk about government. I'm, again, former chief of staff in the legislature, and really not talk about government so much as give you a quick tutorial on ways that you can engage your government. Is that fair enough? Okay, so I would like to start with just a couple of things with which I hope you will leave. And the first of all, I know that a lot of people seem to think of, and some of my friends too, kind of think of government as this thing that has always existed. It just kind of like, sprang from the, throbbing mind of Zeus like Pallas Athene, just always existed. And that's actually not true. As the Declaration of Independence tells us, governments are instituted by people. It's always been with us as people, but really it's just a way of organizing ourselves and living in a society and getting things done that we either couldn't or would have a really hard time doing solely by ourselves. So again, it's instituted by people. The second thing is that people seem to forget. Again, they think of it as like this amorphous blob, but it's not. Top to bottom, your government is peopled. All governments are peopled by people. It's just people. In my experience, they almost universally are competent, they are diligent, they are hardworking, and they want to be helpful. So, I would hope you would remember that. And then finally, government is us. It is of, by, and for the people. We institute government. Every law that there is on the books today was enacted. It came from somewhere. They don't just sit there dusty on the shelf. They haven't always been. Most of the time, sometimes they come from legislators, these ideas. Sometimes they come from governors. But very often they come from citizens. Your government is your government, and it is going to be what you make it, or what you help it be. And so, I hope you all remember that. And as I'm going to say here at the end of this, get informed, stay informed, get involved, be involved. And hopefully this will help you do it. Okay, so right at the top, turns out that governments, they want to be responsive. They want to be engaged, although they sometimes don't like it so much. But they want to be engaged by the people. And actually, you have some really great resources available to you today to help you, again, get informed, stay informed, and get involved. And one of them, and so one of the ones I wanted to use as an example for you is the Alaska State Legislature's website. The Alaska State Legislature has a really great website that can help you find a whole range of things and really get engaged. So if you were to go to the legislature's website right now, you'll see this home screen. Over on the left, you'll see some drop downs that give you things like, the Senate, who's in it, the House, who's in it. We'll get into that. You also see a list of tabs. I wonder if this thing has a pointer. But a list of tabs along the top about things like calendars, schedules, archives, other government info, and then other, what I like to call the Legi links. So right at the top, I said that your government is full of people and they want to be helpful. Right here in our community, if you go over to the Global Credit Union building over by Home Depot, that's where our Legislative Information Office is, which is often euphemistically called the LIO. But that's what it means, the Legislative Information Office. And so you can go right up there. It's on the 3rd floor. There's the phone number for it as well. And they've got a couple nice people there. That's where the legislators, most of the legislators in our community have their local offices. But it's also where they have these nice ladies and gentlemen from time to time that are the staff. And so if you ever have a question, who's my legislator? Where do I vote? Although there are other resources to help you find that, you can always give them a call, and they'll be very helpful. And often you'll end up going over to the LIO if you ever want to testify on a bill. So diving a little more closely, Again, you see things like your Senate members, and if you were to click that tab, well, we'll actually be walking through there. Senate members, House members, bills and laws, committee info. So if you were to click the Senate tab or the House tab, it'll, now this is an old slide. So this is not the seat, although some of these people are still there, like Kathy Giesel and Click Bishop. But you'll find a list of all the legislators, their districts, basic contact information. If you were to click on any one of these, you can do a little bit of a deeper dive on that legislator, find out bills that they have sponsored or co-sponsored, all kinds of good information. So I used Bart Laban as this example. That way I wouldn't get yelled at by any of the sitting politicians, because if you highlight one, you have to highlight them all. But good old Bart Laban, again, so that you could see, this is the page you would find. So Bart, you can see what district he was. At the time, it was District 1, Republican, his numbers, his interim contacts, his legislative contacts. If you ever go down to the building, you'll know where to find him. Bills that he sponsored or co-sponsored. All that good stuff, and his voting record. So speaking of bills, because that's a lot of what gets done down in the legislature. Bills, we all took, actually, does anybody remember Schoolhouse Rock? I'm Just a Bill? Bingo. Okay, I love that. I will tell you, Schoolhouse Rock got me through high school government. So there's different ways to search for bills. So right at the very top, you see that you can actually type it in. Like, say the number of a bill. An example I've got here is HB 177. We'll talk about that. But you can just type it right in. Or you see bills and laws. You come over to bills. Now, if you were to click laws, it would actually take you to the statutes. But bills, and then lots of different ways to search for them. So all legislative bills and resolutions are coded by number. If they originate in the House, they get an H. If they originate in the Senate, they get an S. And so, as I noted, HB 87 in the 87th legislature, it was the 87th bill that got logged, because they actually just come in chronological order by when they get filed. So, the ones I use most often are either the sponsor summary or the subject summary, although some of them have what's called a requester summary. Turns out that the governor is not allowed to put a bill in the legislature. He has to get somebody or some committee to file it for him. Sponsors are the legislators themselves, that list we saw. And then finally, by subject. Often you won't know what the bill number is, you won't even know who the legislator is, but you'll know the general subject of what you're looking for. And you can go to the subject summary, and you see that there's this massive breakdown. Oh boy, this nice big, there we go, breakdown by general subjects. From things like administrative procedures, how boring is that? Budgets, that's the one that most of us end up talking about a lot. Energy, schools, or actually it's under daycare. You go down the list, collective bargaining agreements. But a way that you can search, and if you were to click on, say, budgets, it would show you the list of bills that have been put in the legislature that involve money, the budget itself. And so you'll see, like even today, or I guess it wasn't today, but this week I've been watching presentations in the House and Senate relative to the governor's proposed budget, where they're walking through the operating budget, which takes care of the general operations of government, or the capital budget, which is where they pay for things like roads if they're not baked into things like the operating budget. Usually capital budget is things like, like when we did the interior energy project for the IGU, it got a $52.5 million capital grant, and it showed up in that capital budget for that year. Okay, so regarding the bills themselves, if you go to a bill, so the example here is HB 39. And again, these are all old. But HB 39 was making appropriations to government, or regarding the government. You can find the text, like actually read the bill itself. Fiscal notes. Fiscal note is where the department or the administration generally says how much something's going to cost. So you say, I think we should have 50 more people working at the Department of Natural Resources, because we've got a big project coming. It'll show up in the fiscal note how much that all is, and really how much it's going to cost over time. It is supposed to be part of the fiscal notes. Minutes and audio, if it's had a hearing, we'll go to that. They have a written record, that's the minutes, but they also have the audio or the video. And then documents. That's all the supporting stuff. If you were to write a letter, say you know that the operating budget is under consideration and you think that it should have more money for schools, and you write a letter, it should show up under the documents. Okay. Now, on the day-to-day basis, or even week-to-week basis, again, they're really trying hard. The legislature has done a really good job over time of beefing up this system. And so you have things like the floor calendar. If you clicked on that, you would see if say the House was going to be meeting that day, or the Senate, and then what they were going to consider. The daily schedule, meetings, and there's even a Live Now tab, but we'll get to those. So let's look at the daily schedule. I was actually just looking at this on my phone, and of course there's nothing for today because it's Saturday. If we go later on in the legislature, they'll be meeting on Saturdays and even Sundays from time to time. But yeah, you can see in chronological order, from 7 a.m. straight on through the rest of the day, what committees will be meeting and what they'll be considering. Welcome to the Open Meetings Act and public disclosure laws, which is great. A more condensed version is meetings, where you see again, really this is just the name of the committee with further links for schedule. Now, looking at this, you see there's a couple of little icons. This is the list of documents and materials relative to the discussion. If you look at there's audio, video, because they actually record these things now. Not only can you watch the videos live, but you can go back and watch recordings if you happen to miss something. Your buddy calls and says, "Oh my goodness, did you hear what happened in House Finance today?" You can go back and watch House Finance, or yesterday, you can watch. And here's an example. It's actually a wrong example, because I actually pulled this just a couple of days ago as I was putting the slide packet together, because this says Senate floor, but that's actually the House Finance Committee. But an example would be at the Live Now tab, it would list all the things that are happening right now. If there's any committees happening at that moment when you're logging on, they'll be listed here. If you clicked on it, you could actually watch them live as they're doing it. And this particular day, I can't remember who this lady was, but as you can see, it was the overview. Actually, that must be ONB. I think this is the governor's representative about the budget. But it was the overview of the governor's proposed FY25 budget. Now, helping keep up with all of this stuff, you saw that list of subjects. You can only imagine what the list of bills is. When I just looked, there are over 200 bills currently active in the House alone. They have a system to help you track all that stuff. And it's the Bill Tracking Management Facility, they call it. But if you go in there, you can put, you create a little account. That's the information there. You can set up the system to basically send you notifications relative to a specific bill. So let's go back to the operating budget. You want to keep your eye on that guy. So you want to know when it's being heard so that you can watch while it's happening. And you can go ahead and put the bill number in, set up the system, and it'll actually send you notices either via email. I'm not sure if they do phone yet, but definitely via email. We doing okay? Doing okay? Okay. It's boring, but it's helpful. So there you have it again. Your government, top to bottom, is for the people, by the people. It's peopled by people, top to bottom. And it's really there for you. We establish these things for us, for you. But if you ever need any help getting involved in this system and navigating it, there's some really nice people over at the Fairbanks LIO who will help. Okay? Turns out, now I started with the state's website because it's actually the best one. It's one of the better ones we have, particularly relative to our community. It's a really robust site. But there's similar things right here for our local government as well. And so I went to the Fairbanks North Star Borough website. You see, you just Google in fnsb.gov or fnsbfairbanks.gov. It'll get you there. They've got a nice little government tab. It's a breakdown, it's got a nice drop down, and it lists the assembly, boards and commissions, calendars, departments, even has a find a job link if anybody's looking for employment, as well as a staff directory and more. If you were to go to the assembly site, do that drop down, there you have all these things listed. You have their agendas, minutes, and audio, their schedule, the committees that they have in operation. You can contact them and what their contacts are and ways to stay connected. You can also go back through if you really get wonky, and you can actually look through the code of ordinances to see what is existing law. And you have a similar function there at the legislature as well. One of the cool things about the legislature's website is, I didn't show it to you, but you can actually go and you look under bills and laws. They have an incredible archive. So not only can you go through the body of statute, but someone will call me on a regular basis. Jim Whitaker, with his crazy self, does it all the time. And he'll say, or Dotson, my old friend Jim Dotson, I remember back in 2010, there was this bill under consideration. I think it was 2010. And I was like, oh, come on, man. But you have a way that you can actually go back through legislatures. They number them. They show them by what the number of the legislature, which is the number of times they've convened since statehood. And you can actually go back through, find who was in office, where were they, what were their bills, and go find that historical record. But from the municipal is not quite as robust. But of course, we're all trying to keep our eye on the assembly. Good old Bryce Ward, Mayor Ward, is going to be introducing his budget for the coming fiscal year. That will get a preliminary hearing. They usually do a public meeting on it, but then the action will move over to the assembly. And this was just a couple of days ago. You see that on January 25th, which is, I believe, next week, or was that yesterday? Oh, that was Thursday. They met. And they're going to be having a joint work session relative to the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District next week. And a special note, I'll get back. I do want to give a special note. Just like we have our LIO, relative to the legislature, and the governor's office is over in the building off of Cushman. There at our borough, as well as at both the cities, you have clerk's offices. And they provide professional, transparent, neutral link. That's what they're there for, between us, the citizens, and the assemblies, the councils, the boards and commissions, the mayor's office, and the administration, the departments that are there to serve us. And our community has 3 great ones. I work with the clerk's offices regularly for Fairbanks North Star Borough, City of Fairbanks, and City of North Pole. They're always there to help. They're really great folks. Cool? Well, that's the quickie. So get informed, stay informed, get engaged, stay engaged. And then I thought, if you guys want, we could do some quick crowd participation. Everybody pull out their cell phones. If you like. You don't have to. You don't have to. And just Google Alaska legislature. And there you'll have it. I was actually at a meeting just a couple of days ago, and somebody whipped out their phone so that they could go look at the legislative record and go try to track down a bill. And it works pretty much the same. It's a little more condensed, but it works about the same. So one of the ones I decided to check as an example, go ahead and click on bills and law, or bill and laws, and then you'll see bills. So go ahead and click on bills. You'll be able to scroll down, and we can go to the subject summary. Does anyone have anything they'd like to know about? I'm always watching energy, as you would expect of me. When you would live in one of the coldest, darkest, major metropolitan centers on the face of the planet, cost and availability of energy is a big, big deal. We have to use a lot of it, and it costs too much. But there are lots of bills actually already working through the legislature relative to energy. So you go ahead and pull one of those up. So give it a try. Again, you can do it right there on your phone. When you're on work on Monday, go ahead and give it a look. There's lots of stuff under consideration. I can tell you that one of the reasons I was able to come up to this position, grow into this position as a broke single father of 2 Alaska girls was because that my boss maintained a family-friendly workplace that allowed me to, come to work early, get the office open, but then take my kids to school, pick them up from school, and then bring them back to the office. They could do a couple of hours of their homework before I had to go home from work. And that degree of latitude was critical to my professional development. It allowed me, frankly, to be a professional, but also a father, the most important job I have. Right now, but a lot of people don't have that option. So childcare is critical to being able to be both a professional, but also a good parent. There's some bills working right now to try to adjust our childcare system to make it more affordable, more accessible for we the users, but also more profitable and allowable for those who want to provide that service. And again, that's moving through the legislature right now. Another one I saw, again, hi, I'm your economic development president. Another one I'm tracking is Mr. Sadler's. He's got this one called HB 77. It's about critical and rare earth minerals. It's the stuff we need to have things like these cell phones. Right now, most of those materials come from places not here in the United States, and in fact are produced by folks who don't like us very much, places like Russia and China, and trying to figure out how we can bring those things back to America. And actually, personally, again, I think that if done right, Alaska could become the China and Taiwan for the free world, where we make the critical minerals, we produce them here in the interior, we refine them and process them here just inside this community, inside the borough, and we make microchips down in the Matsu. All of those things are possible, but a lot of that action happens right there in the legislature. So, get informed, stay informed, get involved, stay involved, because your government works for you, and it works best with you.
All right, do we have any questions for him?
So over the past couple of decades, I've written a couple of letters to senators about getting rid of daylight savings time, and I've never gotten a response. What do we have to do to get rid of daylight savings time? Where would you start?
I thought you were going to ask to get a response. Actually, we'll start with that first one. Just because it's supposed to be responsive doesn't mean it always will be. Government, again, it's all full of people. And so sometimes you'll have to be persistent. I'm forever reminding my staff, because they're all very young, that you can pick up the phone. Yes, send the email, yes, send the text, yes, yes. But sometimes, you'll have to do all of those things to move the football forward. As far as, again, how a bill becomes a law, there have been bills in the legislature to get rid of daylight savings time. And so, yeah, it would just be, as you said, weighing in. Sending that letter either to your legislator, ask them to forward it, send it to the committee, ask them to include it in the record. Persistence, though. A lot of things take time. So if you go to, it's fine.
She said, what do you mean by send it to the committee? Sorry,
Yes.
just talking to the live feed.
You can actually email both to legislators or committees because you have committee staff. I was chief of staff a couple of times in the legislature, but I was also a committee aide. And so if you sent a letter to the Senate Education Committee at the time, I would get the email and respond. I would respond. Fisheries Committee was the same. And this is all kind of cool for me, too. I mean, one of the things I got to do when I was I've done a few tours in the legislature over the years, and when I guess this was about the 2010, 2011 time frame, the Senate Committee Aide for Education, that's when Governor Parnell dropped the Alaska Performance Scholarship, which was a new framework for a scholarship, because it gave scholarships all the way down to the C level. I was used to seeing scholarships for A's and maybe B's, but this one went all the way down to C's, because what they were trying to do was encourage kids to take tough classes and try, and then reward them for having tried. Flash forward a decade, and my kid qualified for the Alaska Performance Scholarship. I've got another kid who's working on checking those boxes right now. If I had to make one recommendation, if you could pull it off, I think every citizen should do one tour in their legislature just to see how the sausage gets made. To see how the sausage gets made, but also to learn that you as an individual can have an impact, and it's greater than you know. It can be frustrating, and yes, it can take time, but you can do it. And the more people you can bring along with you, the greater your chances are.
All right, let's thank him. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So before I introduce our final speaker of the day, and thank you for hanging in there with us and coming out on such a cold day, I do want to mention one thing. This is a gift to you. It's free. There's no obligation. But I do love the food bank, the Fairbanks Food Bank. And I'm on their board, just, disclosure. So anyway, this is our 6th year, and I wasn't on the board until this year. But the last 5 years, we've always just said, hey, if you just were blessed by this and feel generous, we do have a donation box, and I think there's even a laptop out there, and we would encourage you to give to the Fairbanks Food Bank. It's a wonderful organization that takes in food and gives food to those who need it in this community. Our church is heavily involved in it. This is one of their distribution points, and so it is a wonderful thing. So anything you give would go directly to the Fairbanks Food Bank, so I just throw that out there, but there is no obligation. We do want to just mainly bless you. I read years ago, John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls on leadership. So whether that's a university, a business, a nonprofit, a church, whatever it might be, leadership matters. If you've ever worked for a leader that wasn't flourishing, wasn't thriving, wasn't leading well, it affects you. It affects your organization. If you've ever worked for a leader that is thriving and flourishing, it raises you up. It encourages you and helps you. So that's why we do this, to try to bless the community. And I thank you for coming. And I just encourage you to continue to always be a perpetual student. So our final speaker is Ann Weaver. And Ann Weaver is the CEO of the Fairbanks Food Bank. And she's an amazing person. She's a good friend of mine. And she's honestly dangerous. She's a black belt, a ninja, I think. I don't know. So be careful around her. She's been married 22 years, and her mom ran the food bank for a long time, and they went through that transition, and her mom is still on the staff, so that's a unique story in and of itself. But Ann has a lot to say. She's an amazing leader. If you've never taken a tour of the Fairbanks Food Bank, you should, and just hear from her. So let's welcome Ann Weaver. I think she'll have a great thing to close us out today.
So I'm pretty sure that Derek just said I talk a lot. I have a lot to say, he says. So one of the things that's always so fascinating to me is that Pastor Derek doesn't tell anybody who's speaking, he doesn't give us any clues. He says, this is a conference, come with whatever you have. And one of the things that's always amazing to me is that we have the same thought processes from year to year. Since December 5th, I will get through this. Since December 5th, the people in my organization have been in crisis and trauma. How many times have you heard that today from folks standing up here? And the trauma started more like back in October. And I'm not talking about our organization's doing fabulous. This community is doing fabulous. We're getting the work done that we need to do. But the people in my organization, starting in October, we had a gentleman diagnosed with appendix cancer, and he was supposed to go into the hospital for one thing, ended up there a week earlier. I was preparing, I knew he was going to go into the hospital, and I was mentally preparing for that. And then another one suddenly ended up in ICU for, it started as pneumonia, turned into kidney failure. That Thursday, when I went to visit him, we thought he was dying because he stopped being responsive. a very good friend of Frank's. I would run into him at the hospital. He survived. That was in October. That was very, very hard. On the day that we thought we lost him, my job was to go see him, hug his family. And then when I got to the food bank, I went to every single staff member. This guy's been with me for 7 years. I went to every single staff member and said, you need to understand how Jason's doing today. And it's not good. And I know you're busy, but we need to hug each other right now. Miraculously, he was shipped off to Anchorage and by Saturday was talking and awake. That was a miracle. We thought we lost him. And in those moments in the hospital, I remember explaining to him, you can't die. You're my semi-driver. I need you in Thanksgiving. We haven't had a Thanksgiving without you in 7 years. I'm not willing to start today. So get up and get back to work. I reminded him of that at Thanksgiving this year, and I said, you know what? Thank you for listening in the hospital. So then, back to the guy with the appendix cancer. We knew he was going in the hospital. But as Jason's in the hospital, all of a sudden Roosevelt is too. We have 3 full-time drivers. 2 of them are in the hospital. That was really hard on the crew. Roosevelt had been with us for 4.5 years. The biggest laugh that you can imagine, this hearty, throw your head back chuckle that you can hear through a 50,000 square foot building. That's Roosevelt. Jason's the other one. Big, loud, boomy voice. I'm sitting in my office and I hear none of them because they're both in ICU. On December 5th, I get a text message from Roosevelt. At this point, he's back at work. He'd had his appendix surgery, and we're thinking, okay, this is a long road. We don't know how long we're going to have him, but we have him. And I get a text message that said, Ann, my chest hurts real bad. I'm going to go to the hospital. 2 hours later, I get a phone call. And the lady said, when Roosevelt was scared, he would always call you, Ann. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. He just passed away. Massive heart attack. That was the start of crisis. We had been hurting for 2 months, but now we're in crisis. One of our long-term guys that we loved dearly was suddenly gone. Roosevelt did not live a healthy life. A lot of my crew come from interesting backgrounds. We were his family and his friends. He wasn't able to, his family wasn't safe for him to be talking with. I was the one his doctor was talking to throughout his surgery. We at the food bank had a little tiny memorial, just us, one Friday afternoon, the Friday before Christmas, because that's the date that the staff picked to say goodbye. And you always wore these funny little hats. And we took his hats and we set him in the middle of the room. And nobody could share any stories of him because they were all very inappropriate. So it was a very quiet memorial. But we just sat there together to heal. A month goes by, or I guess from that period, a couple weeks go by. And on January 5th, a very long time volunteer of at least 6.5 years sits down after a shift at the food bank, sits down in our big open reception area and has a massive medical issue and dies sitting in the middle of my lobby at lunchtime with all of our volunteers and our staff. That was January 5th, exactly 1 month after the phone call from Roosevelt's friend. By the way, the phone call for Roosevelt's friend, I was the only one notified. Have you ever been the only one notified of a death? I mean, I can't even, that doesn't even compute. When she called me, I went and talked to the staff, but I didn't tell anybody else because my assumption was somehow miraculously the universe would know. No. 3 days later, I discovered I was the only one who knew, and I had to find his family. So now, this wonderful volunteer of 6 years, they're 4 days a week, every morning for 6 years. He just, Wednesday was his day off. He literally passes away in a chair at the food bank. But my cook across the room sees that he's struggling, and he tail ends it over there, and pretty soon the front office, we've got, bam, we got a call to 911, bam, we got a call to me to get me down there. And by the time I get down there, the whole room is silent and scared. And my first thought was, I'm the leader here. They're calling me downstairs to help with this situation. He's not okay. And I've got all this CPR training and all these things running through my head, which, by the way, you have those moments of epic fail. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at him, and somebody says, do we lay him down? And I'm thinking, okay, what injuries make it so you can't move them? I'm having to run through this in my head. And eventually it's like, yes, let's lay him down. And they moved everything aside. And at that point, get Pam. Pam is our CPR response lady. That's what she did for many, many years at Red Cross. And she gets herself up there. And I'm not the one that laid him on the ground. My job was to direct traffic and to get out of the way so that 2 men that needed to have something to do could lay him on the ground. Pam comes in and she starts directing for CPR. 2 volunteers and a staff member administer CPR and bring him back to life. When the paramedics arrive and they come in here, he's already set up and ready for them because the crew had the freedom to respond. And my first thought was, Ann, you failed. You walked downstairs, you didn't put him on the ground, you didn't help give CPR, you did none of that. And I was beating myself up because, you look back at those emergencies and you think to yourself, what could I have done better? And I'm thinking, everything. And my crew walked up to me one at a time and said, thank you for your confidence. Thank you for your calm. Thank you for directing traffic. Thank you for your hugs. And you were the best leader we could have had today. When he left the food bank, he had a heartbeat and breath. So while he still had a heartbeat and breath, thanks to the fact that our CPR specialist was thoughtful enough to tell our facility manager, get the names and numbers of everybody involved. So an hour and a half later, I'm now at home and I'm thinking through the day and it's, man, I sure would like to be able to call those people who did this amazing act and tell them, good job. And both said, I have their number, thanks to Pam. Oh, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I was surrounded by so many people who did amazing things. So my memory of that day is calling people that made a difference and thanking them. 2 hours later, he passed away. But I'd already told my crew they did the best they could do. They did the near impossible, and he left with a heartbeat and a breath. 5 days later, the first person I ever hired, one of the most honorary men in our crew, probably fired him 11 times and rehired him 11 times, he called out for work on Monday. On Tuesday, he was a no-show, which was weird. He usually kept in good communication with me. And on Wednesday, he was found in his apartment, dead. At that point, this is number 3 in a 35-day period of 4 to 7 year, 8-year stints. Call everybody up front. I said, just get them up front now. And they all come up front. And I say, people, we just lost Miguel. We just lost Miguel. At this point, I have a crew that has had nothing but hard in their life. A lot of it by their own making, some of it not so much. I've got 6, well, at the time, 5 severely disabled vets. Severely disabled. They can do the physical work, but they're broken. They have never learned how to mourn. They don't know how to communicate and work with each other. They don't know what it is to feel something inside anymore because a lot of them, we had Rangers, we have Marines, we have Special Forces. I mean, we're talking folks that have done some hard things. They don't know how to feel. And we just lost 3 crew members. What was my job? Ask them what they needed. Hug them, each and every one of them. So last Friday, based on the requests of my staff and the great ideas that came from our wonderful board of directors, we closed the food bank at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to just be a staff. People kept working just to be a staff. We called in Pastor Derek, had him just be up front so that anybody who wanted to pray with him could. One of my ladies said, Ann, we've had a person pass away in the building. Any chance you could bless the spot? Fair enough. So I said, Pastor Derek, I don't know how many people are going to come sit with you today, but the act of you being here, he gave us 3.5 hours of his time. The act of you being here today is going to help us heal. So he did. And that 3.5 hour period, he doesn't know this, but I have this cool little security system where I can watch each room. And I was spying on him. I'm up in my office, right? And I'm pulling out the phone going, who's in there now? Because I wanted, my prayer was that people were taking advantage of his time. But yeah, I was totally snooping. It was great. And to sit there and watch, at one point he had 2 people in his office talking. People kept coming upstairs to my office. My office is out of the way. So when they come to my office, it's not an accident. Coming up to the office to tell me how meaningful it was to have the quiet and to have the support. We went home that night to a 3-day weekend because Monday was honestly, this track, I've lost track. I think Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And when we walked in on Tuesday morning, there was peace. There was laughter. There was joy. Fast forward a week. And one of the people this happened Wednesday, so I'm still tender. One of the people really important to me has a stroke. I spent Wednesday night and Thursday at the hospital. I'm dog tired. But he's recovering so I can smile. And somebody asked me, several people have asked me, because this has been quite a road, and how come you're still smiling? At the staff meeting, we had a manager's meeting on Friday morning yesterday. And I said, guys, I need you to understand something. We just had a personal crisis in our family of somebody who's like a father figure to me. And here's the deal. I got to heal with you when Roosevelt passed. I got to heal with you as we worked through Dan and through Roosevelt. You guys have checked on me as much as I've checked on you. And I can't thank you enough for that. Because when my friend then ended up having a stroke, I didn't feel like it was a burden on top of a burden. I felt tired, scared, but supported. I have never understood the value of leadership so much in my life. When your crew is supporting you, they must know they're important. You have heard some amazing pearls of wisdom here today. Some of my most favorite speakers in the world are here today. And I've written my spiel today 4 times. And every single time I wrote it, and I'm going through this, I threw it away. Because not one of the pearls of wisdom I could think of was helping me as I was hurting. Today, you've heard some wonderful pearls of wisdom. But let's talk about leading a hurting crew. Ours was not an external. Marilyn's company is going through an external, which becomes an internal crisis. Ours is an internal crisis of the people that could negatively impact the whole organization. So how do you lead people when they're hurting? And how do you, when you hurt, lead people? Leadership is this incredible combination of impersonal protection of your organization wrapped up with personal relationship building. This impersonal protection of your organization, very important, wrapped up with personal relationship building. You know, I've had so much fun today listening to folks because I'm basically going to repeat Marilyn, Eric, John, Frank. We've all been on the same shade. I have phenomenally high standards for my organization. Phenomenally high standards. Because just like Frank said, if you don't have high standards, you're not going to get there anyway. The standards are for the output. We will be the best servant to this community, period. We will be the most effective and the funnest place to volunteer. We will. We will be the best stewards of donations, of time, of money, of food. We're going to take the best care of whatever gift you bring in. We will. Those are my standards. We will. But I hire humans, and I'm a human. You have a broken person leading broken people. So how do we meet high standards? When humans lead humans. In the best of times, leaders must provide good training, give good direction. You know, if you get on an airplane and you know the destination that you paid to go to, and the pilot goes, "I'm not really sure how to get there," might be a little upset. And if you want better things for your vacation, why don't you want better things for the people you lead? You have to give good direction. You have to know where you're going. You must give encouragement. You must honor those that work for you. You have to acknowledge their good work. You have to train where they fall short. You have to bring out the best in them. You have to make sure you've got the right people on the bus and in the right seats. You have to be on mission. In best of times, you have to. Those are your starting points. But what about the worst of times? Colin Powell once said, "Leadership is solving problems. The day soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you have stopped leading them. They have either lost confidence that you can help or concluded that you do not care. Either case is a failure of leadership." What was my role in all of this? To hug each other when we found out that Jason might not make it. To tell each person individually when I found out about Roosevelt. I made the same path I did with Jason, only this time it was worse news. To put on a memorial for Roosevelt when he passed. To direct traffic during Dan's emergency. Not doing the work of saving him, just helping other people to be able to do the work, guiding other people to the work. Helping the crew through the trauma of Dan's passing and the fact that it happened with a full audience at lunchtime in the middle of the lobby. Answering questions. calling an all-staff meeting for Miguel when he then passed, closing, giving them support, and just letting them be. None of that sounds like big fancy leadership stuff, but those were my roles. My roles were to ask them what their needs were and then to listen. And also to be able to hear between the lines when they spoke, so that I could detect what their needs were without even having to ask. And then saying back to them, if this happened, would it be helpful to you? So I'm showing them that they're heard. What helped me? Having the crew all work together. It was so meaningful when we're down 2 out of 3 of our drivers to make every pickup still. We provided hundreds of thousands of pounds of food while in crisis. And the crew had joy doing it because they were doing it together with 5 severely disabled vets who don't know how to grieve. So I had to help them. Having a board that supported me. I can't say thank you enough to our board of directors because they called, they came in, they brought flowers to our memorial. Having family time, which meant don't answer my phone. I'm going to hang out with my crew and gather myself. Having appropriate boundaries. One of the lessons that my kids are learning is that when you hire folks with hard backgrounds, sometimes part of their life becomes dishonesty. So we're going to bring our friends, these precious people that we have the honor and joy of working with, and we're going to love them and we're going to enjoy their company. But that doesn't mean that we can always trust them. We have to be wise. Having appropriate boundaries. What good could I have been through this to the crew if I wasn't healing? A good leader has a good support team. You know, there are so many stories in this room of folks when somebody took a second to just be with you when you hurt. When I was 11 years old, my father died. And you want to know that one person I remember was my friend who happened to be a counselor, but I just knew her from church. She was just this wonderful lady at church named Valerie. And I go into church, and she comes up to me, and she says, Anna, I'm going to give you a hug. And I give her a hug, and then I realize she's crying. Like, you don't know the guy. You know, why are you crying? And she said, Ann, because we need to cry together. There are so many moments of leadership where our job is just to cry together. You know, I was with Miguel when his father died because he made a point of coming to me when his father died. Leadership is not just making a tough choice, giving good training and good direction, giving encouragement, honoring those who work for you, being on mission. It is all of those things, but it's not only those things. It's loving your crew. Frank loves his team. John truly enjoys the people that he works with. You could tell that from how he spoke this morning. It's about supporting their hearts, being with them as appropriate through hard times. Their drama does not need to be my drama. but I can sure hug them and support them through their drama. And I can have the high standard to say that drama has nothing to do with getting this food to that family. We're going to be the best at what we do. But we're going to do that even when we hurt. So let me support you. Let me love on you. Let me hug you. Let me be with you while you do meaningful work and get this family fed so that their day can also be better. John 13:34-35 states, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. When you lead, may you lead with your heart engaged. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming again out on such a cold day. Anne, are you okay with a question or two? Anybody have a question? I know you're tired. It's the end. They're like, don't ask a question. Well, if you have questions, she'll be around, and some of the other speakers are still around as well. So I forgot to mention her. I think she's gone, but Alaska Lizzie did lunch. How about we clap for her and thank her? I'll tell her. And thanks so much for coming, and I thank all the speakers. No one was paid. This was a gift to the community that they did, and so I hope that this helped you. I hope you grabbed one good nugget, one thing. I always walk out of this, I've been leading for 30 years, with something that will push me a little bit or inspire me or challenge me or humble me and help me to be a better leader. And that's what your organizations need. They need you to flourish. They need you to thrive. They need you to grow. And I think I agree with John Maxwell. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So thanks for coming. Have a great week.